Man, I'm so excited for this watch table. We are literally out here in the Driftless, next to a stream, with one of my best watch buddies here. I'm excited to introduce you to everybody. This is Mike, Dr. Day Date on Instagram, a good friend of mine. One of the reasons I'm completely addicted to fly fishing now. It's so cool to be here with you. This is so fun.
Yeah, Chase, great honor. Thanks for having me here. And we're in a very special spot. You know, this is the exact stream that both of us learned how to fly fish on.
You on this one too?
Yep.
I knew that you caught like a trout nearby. I didn't realize that. Oh, sorry, your first trout. I knew that was nearby. I didn't realize that this stream was one that you actually learned on.
Yep. It took me a few trips to catch that first trout, but yeah, this is where I wet my first line and caught a few trees in the process.
Well, this was the first place that you took me to as well, and I got skunked on my first one here, but it was so much fun. I enjoyed it, and I was just addicted. And of course, what is fun about this location, and you might hear it in the background, is we've got cows just behind the cameras. There's a couple donkeys, and I hope they're friendly. We'll find out. I know they are literally standing there watching us.
I appreciate an audience.
It's an audience. You know what? Perfect. Yeah. We're good. We have an audience now. I love it. Well, welcome to the watch table. One of the things that we love about doing this is we get to talk about our owners, folks who have one of our pieces, their collections, and learn a little bit more about them, because one of the things that I absolutely love about watches is they have a story. And, you know, it makes me ask the question of, why do you love watches?
Yeah, I think both watch collecting and fly fishing I got into for the same reason. A family heirloom that was kind of like uncovered and found, and kind of piqued my interest. So in my fly fishing experience, it was an old bamboo rod. And for watch collecting, it was really... I ended up with both of my great-grandfather's watches. One is a Bulova, which I don't have here at the watch table, that I'm pretty sure by the looks of it, my grandfather wore for about 40 to 50 years.
I love it.
And then this one is for my other great-grandfather, and it was a gift to him after 25 years of service at the firm he was with. And when I uncovered it or came across it, I wasn't a watch enthusiast. I was, pretty young, first, second year of undergraduate. And, I was looking at it, and it said Omega Automatic. And I knew...
Omega's fancy.
I knew.
I think you used to be a James Bond fan, right?
Exactly.
And you're like, I know Omega. Omega's good.
I know that train scene, yeah. So I gave it a couple wines because I knew something about automatic watches at the time, and it started running. And honestly, my heart sang. It was really special.
It's just such an instant connection to a family member. And that's just one of the things that I love about watches, is that, for example, some of these watches that we'll talk about, I know are going to go to your kids. And that's so tremendous. And I love it. And I'm sure that your family would love to know that is a watch that has now started this crazy obsession where we're sitting here next to a stream talking about watches. And I apologize if I'm a little distracted. There's like literally flies landing on this table. And we've seen some trout take some bites over there, and I know we're here to talk watches, but I can't wait to get on there.
Yeah, but it's hard not to pay attention to those rousing trout 6 feet over there.
It's hard. But how funny is this? It's great. I love it. We're on our waders. We just did some fishing. Now we're talking watches, drinking some bourbon. It's great. So one of your first watches that you picked out, and you told me this story, we'll name the brand, although I know that there's a lot of folks out there who kind of say it hush hush, but it's Invicta. But it's a piece that, if I remember correctly from your story, you went to the place, the guy treated you really nicely, and you were just enamored by the sapphire crystal.
Exactly. So when I saw this watch and he's like, this is a Swiss movement and it's sapphire, I just was absolutely sold. I'm not too proud to say my first watch was an Invicta. We had some good years together. 2 years this watch was on my wrist through everything. And if your undergraduate was anything like mine, there were some pretty fun times.
I don't remember all of them.
Yeah, you can see the scratches on it.
So it was like yours.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I did wear that watch during my scuba certification, and it was kind of funny. I kind of liked watches, but I didn't know a whole lot about watches at the time. And at the end of it, my dive instructor asked me to see what watch I had on, and he just told me I needed to buy a real dive watch.
I mean, I guess while a bit rude, the dive instructor himself, it seemed, was a watch guy, and that's cool because most of the time you see those folks in the water with their dive computers, and they're like, man. And a shout out to Jason Heaton, who is the ultimate guy who will wear a dive watch on one wrist and a dive computer on the other.
Yep.
It's the romanticism of it all, and I think that is one of the reasons why we love watches, fly fishing, gear, bikes, whatever it may be. It's really like getting into those random, small, nitty-gritty details and the stories.
Yep.
Which I know one watch here that you have a huge story on is this Rolex Date Just that your parents gave you as to kind of start a tradition with your family.
Yep.
Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so this is my college graduation watch. I knew that I was going to get this watch because I have an older brother who graduated college, and he received a two-tone Date Just as a graduation present. And my parents were hoping that this would be the one watch for all occasions, robust enough to wear day in and day out.
I mean, a two-tone watch is good for everything, right?
Exactly. So. At the time I was like, well, like, what about these ones in the back of the catalog, that have the diver next to them? And of course I wanted a Submariner, but my parents were like, no, get a watch that will fit you throughout your years.
Submariner's not that guy.
Yeah. So what I'm really thankful for the watch is not only the memories that the parents put in me, but this is a watch I don't think as a younger person I would have bought myself.
Yeah.
And now I love having it in my collection because it really functions as a special occasion watch for me.
I mean, looking at your collection, it's not a piece that I think fits in a good way because it's something that is that much more special, and it's something that's going to stand out, which I think is a great thing.
Yep.
But then another family watch, if you will, I know quickly we'll say that Oris was one that your wife okayed the purchase on, right? Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so my fiance...
And I apologize, but there's a whole bunch of cows and donkeys looking at us over the shoulder.
So
I really hope that's on camera.
So my wife, fiance at the time, knew I was in the watches, and we had a special occasion coming up. And I said, this watch on this website is what I really want. And what really sold me on this Oris TT3 was that it had a day-date function. And that's kind of what started my moniker on Instagram, Dr. Day-Date.
Dr. Day-Date.
It's my favorite complication.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, as we've passed by the introduction, I will quickly say you are, of course, a doctor, a family man, a fly fisherman, and a good friend, and a collector. And I think it's so cool, again, that you have so many stories with your family, because that's how I love watches. That's how I've connected with watches, and I think that's great. But another watch that your wife gave the okay on, if you will, and one that was a surprise to you, was your Tudor that you bought in Asia?
Yes. So we did this terrific honeymoon a few months after we were married, and we were kind of taking in the city of Hong Kong, kind of just moving through the streets, and just kind of came upon a secondhand watch store, and this Tudor Submariner was in the window, and I said, hey, can we go in and check this out?
And how many times have we all done that, and our wives, our partners are like, no, we've got dinner reservations, or no, let's go get a cocktail, and she didn't say that.
No, and I think she could just tell how much I wanted this. And the whole experience of getting it on our honeymoon was really special. I've worn this basically anytime that we have a date night, anytime that we have a vacation together where it's just us, I wear a honeymoon watch. It's a really special piece for me.
I love it. That's so cool. I love it. And then, of course, we do have the very well-known Rolex Explorer 2 with a beautiful white dial. It's a piece that I feel like can fit anywhere as well. And if I remember correctly, you wanted to jump into this piece to get a Rolex that wasn't necessarily the everyday, that everyone had it. And just maybe 4 or 5 years ago, you jumped on this before they became really popular. So are you also saying that it's your fault that these became really popular?
I like to say I was a little ahead of the curve. It was like once upon a time the hipster Rolex, but now it's just as common as, or just as popular as the rest of them. But there's something about it that this beautiful kind of bezel, the amount of design and effort that they put into it. It's a really unique piece, and I like it because it's not instantaneously recognizable as a Rolex from across the room.
It's a beautiful piece. And little known story, I actually owned a black dial version of that, and I liked it. I didn't connect with it, so I sold it maybe after only like 2 weeks of having it, which, part of me kind of regrets, but only because it was a Rolex and I couldn't buy it for the same amount that I bought it before.
Yeah,
that's the only reason I regret it. I don't regret it because like, oh, I wish I had that piece. I regret it for the money of it, and that's not for me. That's not for me what drives my collection. So I really don't. It's fine. I'll get over it.
I share that. We all have pieces that have come into the collection and gone out, and we kind of miss them. And sometimes you have an opportunity to get them back.
Well, I guess that does bring us to a question about this Tudor. The Pelagos here that you have, that is kind of that scenario where... Well, you tell me more about that.
Yeah, so the left-hand drive Pelagos was kind of the first kind of sports watch that I got into. Loved it, had pretty much 2 great years with it, but that desire, going back to what I wanted as my graduation watch, to get a Submariner into the collection, so that left-hand drive kind of went in as a package deal, so I could
so you can pick up the Submariner
the
here,
yep.
which is a great piece, but you missed that Tudor so much, you ended up finally buying another one back.
Yeah, so have a Pelagos back in the collection. I went with the blue this time just because having a black dial Submariner made me appreciate that blue so much more.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's actually a really great piece. It's one of my favorite Tudor models. I really enjoy how the indices are cut into that rehaut or chapter ring. I think it's a really fun detail. That's cool. And then one watch, though, that's really important to, actually, I think kind of you and I. One of the things that kind of sparked our friendship, my unfortunate inability to stop spending money on fly fishing, and the reason that we found to go fishing as much as we can is your Humboldt 12-hour, which was probably the most fun way ever to deliver a watch, was to drive out to the Driftless, go fly fishing, and then hand off a new watch to a new owner.
Yeah,
that was the best.
That was an absolute very special weekend. I've never had that type of service where the owner of the company comes and hands deliver the piece to me. It was really special. And I had come across Oak and Oscar probably almost 2 years before we met up and actually purchased the piece, and my plan was to get back to Chicago. My wife and I spent 8 years there. We had our first 2 kids there. It's a special city to us, but with the pandemic coming up, we had to come up with an alternative way to get a delivery.
I've heard of COVID. That's a real thing. It's it was something that worked really well for me too, and you say it was special to you. It was just as special to me. One thing that folks may not realize is that one of the coolest parts about what I get to do is learn a little bit more about our owners, learn more about the folks who own our watches, and become part of that story, and to know where this person's wearing it, why they are, the reasoning behind it, and it's such a tremendous honor for me. I love it. And I think something, though, like the next time we went fly fishing, you're like, dude, I gotta show you what I just got. And it was this IWC Petite Prince, which is beautiful, and you were so enamored by it, you were so excited about it, and I think it's a really great piece.
Yeah, so if you can see kind of the story of my collection up to that point, there's no chronograph on it. And I had been kind of waiting my time, seeing will a moon watch kind of come in front of me and at the right time and something I could get. But to be honest, when I put the moon watch on my wrist, I just didn't feel like it fit me.
It's a controversial statement that you're not the biggest Speedmaster fan.
Exactly.
What if they made a day date?
There's a few out there, triple calendars.
Yeah, I've got one. They're so fun. They're so great.
So that the calendar function might pique my interest, but the case just didn't sit well with me.
Interesting.
And the salesperson said, we've got other chronographs over here. I had gotten introduced to IWC through my wife's brother. He had a beautiful Portugueser, which I always appreciated. Thought it was just an absolutely beautiful watch. Saw this Petite Prince and just was absolutely smitten with the dial. the way the bracelet was built. I think it's a terrific
They
piece.
do a great job with their dials. They make them so legible and clear and clean, and it's a great piece. I think it's a really fun piece to have. Another watch that's a little bit outside your normal collection, but with another very legible, very clean, classic design is your Explorer.
So the Explorer is probably a watch that if I didn't have a chance to try it on in person, I wouldn't have bought based off of the dimensions. And
Well, this is not your normal size.
Exactly.
You tend to 40 mil plus.
Exactly. Yep. So I probably would have gone, a little bit secondhand to get the 39. But when I got the 36 case on, I was like, this is absolutely a joy to wear.
I love it.
So this just goes out as a message. Don't judge a case just by its dimensions.
For sure.
And it's sometimes nice to have some variety in your collection.
Of course. Absolutely. But one of your most recent purchases is on your wrist.
Yep. Right
the
here.
Humboldt GMT,
Yep.
which was so fun to show you actually before it even hit the market. You were kind of one of the first folks that we showed. And I still kind of remember that moment. We were at your cabin here in the Driftless. I handed it to you, and what'd you say?
I said, Chase, this is absolutely perfect. I wouldn't change a thing about it.
Yeah.
And
then I slid over the money, right? The 10 grand check. Yeah. Cash. Sorry.
And I think I was like, when can I buy one of these?
Yeah.
When does the website go live?
Yeah.
This is a really special piece to me. I think after day date, which, early on in my collecting, that was my favorite complication. Now, as I've traveled a little bit, we've been to Asia, we've been to Europe together, I just love the romance behind the GMT, kind of places you're going to go, places you've been. That's really special to me.
It's all about daydreaming. It's all about thinking to yourself, what's happening in London right now? What's going on wherever it may be? And that's one of the reasons why the GMT is absolutely one of my favorite complications.
And one of my favorite things about this is the GMT hand on it, the arrowhead function, and the story behind that. I absolutely love it.
It's a very personal thing, such as all of the watches that we design. It's I used to collect arrowheads as a kid, as you know, and I wanted to create a GMT hand for the Sanford, which is our very first GMT, that was personal. And the arrowhead to me was the right thing to do. It's not just a triangle. It's not a what have you. It's an arrowhead. It's a personal story to me, and we carried that on for this watch, and I think it's worked out beautifully. I love this watch. It's one of my favorite pieces we've ever made, and it's been tremendously well received, and it's just an honor to see it on your wrist, on friends' wrists. It's just great. Well, I think that brings us to the next part of the watch table, which is always fun, is the rapid fire questions. You ready?
I'm ready.
What's your favorite complication?
Remains day date.
That was easy.
Yep.
That was probably too easy. Okay. If you could live anywhere in this world, where would it be?
Based off of the trout fishing, Missoula, Montana.
Okay. Who'd win in a fight? A traditional fly fisherman or a cast fisherman?
So I think it's highly likely that the fly fisherman would be so preoccupied with his gear and tying knots that he wouldn't even know that some kind of confrontation was happening. So I'd probably go with the conventional.
I think that's probably really accurate. Okay, one more question. We're throwing this one in.
Okay.
What's your favorite drink?
Favorite drink? I am a big fan of old fashions, but I don't take them the classic Wisconsin way with brandy. I prefer them with rye.
Do you still like it with all the fruit muddled in and everything?
I like it a little bit more clean, streamlined.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
No
No wonder.
Luxardo cherry in there, simple syrup.
No wonder we're friends. I love it.
Nice.
That is my go-to drink.
It's perfection in a glass.
It is just amazing. It's amazing. Okay, last question. How many date discs are in this little jar?
I'm going to go with 83.
83.
83.
Okay,
That's my
83.
number.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Well, Mike, it's been a pleasure. Cheers to you, and thank you so much for being on the watch table.
It's been an honor. Thank you.